Well, so it's been a tough thing for the banks, as you know, and I think the banks will have to fight harder for the share of attention, so to speak, for the younger demographics compared to, say, my demographics before. But I think if RBI cuts rates, I think generally the liquidity is easing, then I think it just eases the pressure on the financial sector in general, and I think just makes it better for the borrowers as well. So it just helps the cycle from a tailwind perspective.
From an earnings perspective, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mandy.
Yeah, as a follow-on, hi there, Niraj. As a follow-on question from your outlook for the Fed and also for the RBI, you've already got the rupee, the local currency, at an all-time low against the greenback. What would you expect it to do if the Fed only goes for 25 basis points next week?
Yeah, so I'm not a macro expert or like a FX expert. We focus on buying stocks and businesses. But I would think that once the Fed cuts, the RBI, the central bank, would have a lot more room to cut because the real rates are very high. But I think they'll be watching the rupee as well. So I think they'll be more calibrated, in my opinion. And I think the weaker rupee generally helps the export sector, which India also needs for growth. So my view is that it'll be gradual cuts rather than massive cuts in India.
You said earlier that it's important, obviously, to avoid the expensive parts of the market, and as a portfolio manager, you're seeing some other attractive businesses to invest in. Can you, if we can just, pin you down on which particular businesses or sectors are you finding that attractive value?
Yeah, so I would say maybe three sectors which come to my mind the most. Obviously, there are attractive opportunities almost everywhere. But financial sector is something that excites us right now. There are lots of opportunities there. The sector in general has underperformed the Indian market. The valuations are at a much lower versus the market. And so I think the financial sector will grow, will do very well if India has to grow, which I believe India will continue doing well. The second sector which we like is the real estate sector. So the real estate sector really started an upturn about, I would say, 2-3 years ago, maybe after the second phase of COVID. And if you go back, the real estate sector was down in the dumps for almost a decade. So we are just in the early innings of a real estate boom in India. And so we like the real estate sector and companies within that. And the last thing I'll mention is the consumer sectors, not just staples, but discretionary. There are some opportunities of some consumer companies which have not done as well in the last 2-3 years, but now catching up as the growth deepens.